I hired a woman who, to my social media team, who had essentially no social media experience whatsoever. She didn't quite meet what we were looking for on paper, but once she was in the interview, it became incredibly clear that she was curious enough to keep up.
I'm Jeremy with Northwest. Today we're joined by Laurel, our marketing manager here. Laurel, you're all about building the right team. So when it comes down to building that team, you're building out culture. How do you build that into your team?
When you're thinking about culture, parts of it are group specific and parts of it should be applicable to any department or any hiring process. So my first one is gratitude. I want people that are grateful for the people around them, that show thanks, because we work so closely together. I think that a younger me would have just been looking for somebody that's kind, somebody that seems nice to work with. And I think that that's important. That's certainly a starting place. But there's an extra step beyond that. And I think that when I think of gratitude, that's not the person that's going to be bitter about having to change the plan or a website being down or, whatever the problem is. They're going to roll with those things a little bit better just in their nature. And they're going to tend to, or at least in my experience, I've noticed that those people tend to be better peers to their teammates and to just be able to support each other better for the good, the bad, be more creative together, be more collaborative, because they just tend to approach things in a different way. And then the other one is curiosity. Okay. For social media, or I think anything that evolves quickly, especially if it's in a little bit of a niche industry, because they have to be so interested in things and want to try things and want to see why they work and why they don't work. I think that those go very, very hand in hand. And so when I'm interviewing somebody or when I'm training somebody, I'm looking for somebody that asks questions back. They don't just take all of the information. Because we all explain things and learn things differently. And so if they're not asking questions back, I don't necessarily think that they're super engaged. But people that are asking more questions, they're thinking about it. They're thinking about things. They're wanting to push themselves. They're wanting to grow. And those often are the people that are willing to fail a little bit and to learn from it and to change direction when they need to.
So when you're building that culture into a team, does one person have an impact on that, or is it a team thing?
Both. We started with a pretty small group, and that was something that ended up having to grow pretty quickly to keep up with the sort of ways we wanted to work. And so we had to make sure that that was transferable person to person, and just really lean into that. So yes, certainly there's a part of it that needs to be group-wide, but also I find these two things so important that I'm almost willing to budge on other more technical skills if a person genuinely has these things. I had one team member that was hired kind of at the beginning of our bubble, I guess, of hiring and kind of picking up the momentum. So at that time, super, super important to be focused on the culture. I wanted to preserve what we had built. And so I hired a woman who, to my social media team, who had essentially no social media experience whatsoever. Just a personal Facebook account. That's it. Yeah. She had a background in marketing. She was interested in marketing roles in general, but that is the only thing we had available that we were actively hiring for in marketing at that time. So that was her choice. I really couldn't even say why I was drawn to even interviewing her, because she didn't quite meet what we were looking for on paper. But once she was in the interview, it became incredibly clear that she was curious enough to keep up. She knew some of the foundations of marketing. She had some experience in lots of different industries and things like that. But she showed up ready to ask questions, ready to learn, fully ready to own the fact that she didn't have a lot of social media background. And so she leaned on people and learned exponentially faster than many, many people, and then always had that gratitude in it and has formed some of the strongest bonds and is one of the most cherished team members that we have. And so that to me just reinforced everything that I felt.
The IKEA Effect is the phenomenon where people intrinsically place a higher value on products they help create. While the concept comes from assembling furniture, it holds true in business as well. Teams fall apart when people don't feel like they're a part of it. If you have ever had a team of highly talented individuals fall apart, vent in the comments below. Culture is the foundation of a successful team and a successful company. Coming up, Laurel's going to explain why that is and how to foster a culture that will lead to your company's success. So Laurel, now that we have the idea of the culture, how are you shaping it and what does that impact look like on your team?
Some of these things are just innate, right? You can't necessarily teach somebody to be curious. Certainly, I think about it in an interview. I'm interested in people that are asking questions back. That to me tells me that they have that curiosity, and they also have sort of that pause to listen to what other people say. So those are kind of good indicators to me that they have those attributes. So from there, I think it's important to nourish that, to celebrate those things within a team. I think it's very simple for a lot of different people to have a lot of wonderful qualities, but if we're not bringing those to the table, then it's not kind of fitting together and creating actual culture. You just have a bunch of great people. Most of our team members are across the nation, so we do a lot of virtual meetings, virtual workshops, virtual contests, even virtual games, all kinds of things to keep that culture and try to build it. And I think it's important that, that we are somewhat playful in it and that we're not taking ourselves too seriously, but still taking the work seriously. So one thing for gratitude that we do is about once a month or so. It's not on a specific day. I just kind of sling it out there when it feels right. But we just have a shout out day. And what that is that everybody goes around the room and just shouts out and thanks somebody that has been helpful to them in the last week or so. And even when I've tried to keep it short due to time constraints, I'm always inspired by how people will explain themselves and be like, and she's been so helpful to me because, XYZ thing is stressing me out and I couldn't get this right, and she stepped in and helped it and made it all work. People always want to lean into that gratitude and celebrate their teammates, and that's an exciting thing, and I think it helps support and sort of nourish the gratitude.
Any advice for someone who's looking to make that big leap, hire someone new and really create the culture? One last piece.
Yeah, of course. I think it's really easy for business owners to be thinking so much in terms of lines and numbers and all of that. Yeah. So some of this sounds like soft skills. It sounds a little woo-woo. It sounds whatever. But at the end of the day, this really adds value to the business. If you have people showing up ready to work, happy to work with who they work with, curious about their job, curious to get better every day, these sorts of people truly, in my experience and opinion, will really add value to what you're building.
Laurel, thank you so much for taking the time to talk with us today. If you have any questions about building a team and creating that culture, leave them in the comments below. Until next time, we'll see you.